Hi, and welcome back to Women Making Magic. I am so excited for today's conversation with my friend and amazing coach, Olivia Chapman. Olivia is a life and business coach for leaders and entrepreneurs, and she is also the co-founder of Inner Glow Circle's coach training, which is just so amazing. And I have been through the training personally. I've also trained coaches in this training. It's so life-changing. Olivia works with world changers who are on a mission to build purposeful and profitable businesses. She's the how to your why, helping entrepreneurs overcome fear and resistance and get into action around their desires. She's a mom. She has a master's degree in leadership. She's an ICF certified professional coach, and she's the creator of Inner Glow Circle's coach training program. She not only trains industry leaders in the coaching field, but she helps them build sustainable, multiple income stream businesses that make them want to jump out of bed every morning. It sounds pretty amazing to me.
Oh, you're making me blush.
Welcome, Olivia. We're so happy to
Thank
have
you.
you.
I'm so happy to be here and to see your face. As much as we talk, we never get to look at each
I
other.
know, it's so funny. It's so good to put a face to the voice, right?
Right, right.
So I'll ask you the first question. What do
Okay.
you stand for in your life and business, and how did you discover that?
Oh, I love this is just a disclaimer. Natalie sent me a ton of questions, and I didn't really look at them. So you guys are getting the real raw answer.
It's so good. We love real and raw.
Wow, what do I stand for? I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is integrity. I think how can you not in life and in business? I'd say especially these days, but I think it's been always like
Totally.
I think one of my archetypes is warrior, and I've always been a warrior for integrity and justice. And I would say that that still stands true in coaching and family, everything.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I know integrity is something that we can like pay lip service to, but it's hard to
Yeah.
put into practice.
It is, and I think it's something you have to consciously be checking in with yourself on, right? Like, especially in the world of like the internet, Facebook, right? Like, we're so um, used to getting so much information all of the time, right? And so it's something you have to consciously be thinking, like, is in integrity with who I am, what I desire to create, where I'm going in this world,
Totally.
and kind of filter everything through that integrity filter, if you will.
I love that. So, what does integrity mean to you? Like, how do you know when you're in integrity?
Oh, there's a lot of different things. Like one, of course, is telling the truth. Like that's the obvious, right? I
100%.
think the other is also kind of along the lines of like alignment, right? Does this feel right for me? Is this what someone else wants for me or what I want for me? Is this really what I stand for? To whether it's something I'm producing or, some way I'm being or interacting with others. Is it really in line with my desires and my vision?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of slowing down to do it. Like I have caught myself out of integrity before.
Totally.
Um, totally. Like when for example, like you hear everyone's doing this, right? Like everybody's doing it. And I'm like, I gotta do it too, right? And you speed off onto the next
This
thing.
shiny object. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I'm like, oh no, I didn't really mean to do that. I didn't want to be doing that. Right. And then it's like backtrack. And then, you know though, when you're in flow, when you're, living kind of what I call like in your zone of coaching genius. And for me that, integrity is a big piece of that.
Yeah, totally. I love that so much.
Thanks.
So, I'm so curious. I know you have this amazing empire and you've built this premier coach training program. But something we talk a lot about on the show is fear and self-doubt and how that can really hold us back. So I'm so curious what role fear has played in your journey and how have you overcome it?
Oh, okay. First, I haven't. I haven't overcome it.
Every
Um,
day.
it's a daily practice. I shared some of this recently. Like, let me look at your question. Like, how does fear show up? Like in coaching, and you know this, like we often call it like survival mechanism or
Mhm.
ego. Um, And for me, my fear typically shows up as like anxiety, right? Like I remember years ago, like when I was naming my soul and naming my fear, like I was anxious assassin when I was at my worst. That's what I called it. And I'd be lying if I said like every day I feel calm and easy, right? It's an active practice. It's something that I have to, get back to being around every day, practically. I'd love to say that I'm totally fearless. And although I act out of fearlessness, it's because I have to actively choose to. I think half the things, I'd say 90% of the things I do make me extremely uncomfortable. Scare me. I mean, even when you're reading all of, my bio, I'm like, oh my God, I did that. I'm like scared to do that now, right? Like we look back and we're like, the way that we get to overcome the fear is just by choosing to in the moment. And so to overcome it, day by day, yeah, but I think if we're normal humans having a human experience, fear is part of it. And I also think it can be, something worth acknowledging and kind of allowing us to use it as a guide.
Ooh, I love that. There were so many juicy nuggets in what you just said that I want to follow this rabbit hole, but I think something that you said that is especially powerful is this idea that you can choose a different choice, right? Like you can choose differently from your fear. I think so often we identify with it so much unless you're doing that work to really distinguish it from who you want to be. So I'm so curious, like, what does that look like for you? How do you choose that different choice?
Yeah, so I think it's like really coming to terms with the fact that our fear is only as real as we make it, right? And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, not true. You don't know what it's like to be me. Like,
Yeah.
you don't understand my circumstances. But then I realized that, again, cliche Olivia. If anyone, my coach training girls hear this, they're gonna be like, all I do is do cliche lines. But like everything we want really is on the other side of fear. And so what I started to realize was like, oh, I like have this great vision and I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to get to it because of XYZ. And I was like, I'm going to have to just practice choosing something else. I didn't even believe it was possible, but I figured it was the only way that it might be possible. So I was like, well, I'll give it a shot because I'm miserable right now anyway. Right? And so the practice really is actually like the fear cleanse that we teach in IGC too, is really just actively going through like, how are you experiencing your fear? What does it feel like? What are you making it mean about you? And even just articulating that or jotting it out. Sometimes I even just like type it in my notes on my phone or on my computer to kind of like release it, right? Like, because ignoring it doesn't actually work, right? We have to acknowledge it. But then when I look back and read it and I'm like, that's not who I am, right? So then from that place, I can be like, what do I want to choose instead, right? Like if I could pick how I showed up to this interview, to this speaking event, to this client or discovery call or experience, like I would definitely not choose everything that was written down in that fear cleanse, right? Like I want to choose leader, teacher, confidence, something else. So it's actively going through the steps.
Totally.
That's what works for me.
And I love that because I find once you write it down, you're like, oh, this is not who I am at all. It helps get that little bit of distance from it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to feel like that about myself. And I'm not saying it works every time, but it's a practice. The more we do it, the more easy it is to kind of accept what's on the, on the end of that page or on the end of that exercise.
Yeah, 100%. I'm so curious because what you said about, having this vision and then saying like, oh my gosh, like I can't do that because X, Y, and Z is something I hear so often, and I think it's such a common experience. So I'm curious, like, what was your life like at that moment, and what was that turning point for you?
Yeah, I mean, I like to paint this picture of like struggle to success. It wasn't that fast.
Isn't it ever? It's like not overnight.
I'm trying to think. Like, I was, of course, in a job I didn't like. I was I was in friend groups I didn't even really like. Honestly, they weren't bringing anything to my life. I was going out all the time. I was in a horrible relationship. And I had all of these ideas, but they never felt like they could be mine, right? Like they were just ideas that I assigned to other people. Like, oh, she could do that. Oh, I just dropped a crystal.
Oh, no. Is it okay?
No takes. I'm literally holding a crystal as we speak. And courtesy of Erin Heldman. So I had all these visions, and I was like, this is for her, and this is why she gets to do that, and da 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 da. And I felt like my circumstance was my destiny. I would say it all happened pretty fast. Like when I started really getting into coaching and personal development and a lot of reading, I had hired my own coach because nothing else was making me happy. Who knew? And I just started to take little baby steps. And then about 3 months into doing my own personal work, I literally walked away from a $25,000 bonus at work, quit right then and there. I left my relationship. I moved out of my apartment. I got a dog, which I did everything that I wanted to do, like in that moment.
That's amazing.
And then I remember driving one day and I was like, wow, I could literally go anywhere today. I am in my car and I could go anywhere. So I went to the beach, and that's a whole nother story, but I don't know. It was like the first time I realized I was actually in the driver's seat of my own life. And then I just kind of played with it ever since and started, picking and choosing where I wanted to go. Yeah. And not all of it has worked out, but, what really allowed me to do that was, starting to drop some of that heaviness of feeling like nothing that I wanted was actually for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. That's such a powerful shift. I'm so curious how you found the courage to do all that in that moment.
I don't know. I think it was like my own version of a rock bottom, I guess. I also would say it was probably some kind of divine timing or divine intervention at work. Like, there wasn't, I don't know. I remember just being like, enough is enough. I don't even know if there was like a one thing, but I just knew that I couldn't do any of what I was doing anymore.
Yeah.
I wish there was like a big fight or something that I could like add.
The dramatic, yeah.
I just woke up and was like, I'm done doing all of this stuff. And that was scary because I was a public school teacher. I was broke. I was about to be single and alone and just got a dog. So I was like, ooh, was this a bad idea? But I also felt like at the time I was doing these, I created a workshop for teenage girls. And I was like, I was making money doing it while teaching. And I was like, you know what? I could just do this full time. Like if I could just do this full time, I could figure it out, right? Like I'd move into a cheaper place. And I kind of had this like, this has to work, right? Like it was really like the leap in the net shall appear. And it did. It didn't look like that, but it appeared. And I think that was part of it, right? Like I knew that if I left all of these things that were keeping me secure, I was actually going to have to do what was on my vision board, to do what I wanted.
Yeah. To figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that leap in the net will appear and it didn't look like how you thought it would, because that was exactly my experience too. So how did your net appear?
Well, so I did those workshops, which turned into taking a coach training program, because I realized what I was doing, although I didn't identify it as coaching, was actually coaching. I started getting hired first by the teachers of the girls that we were doing workshops for, which was interesting.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I started realizing, I was like, wait a second, like, although the teen girl market isn't unreachable, I was like, if I could just get hired to do this work with individuals, I would have a whole business. And so that's what I did. I got my coach training certification, and I mean, that was a journey that was up and down, and hired a business coach and, got underway. And within 6 months, I created a fully sustainable business.
Yeah.
I will say it was hard, and it was like sustainable. I mean, I was paying all my bills barely, but I was. And, at the time I did meet Greg, my current partner, and that was like a whole new world. And, he was kind of figuring things out too. And so we had each other, and that support looked way different than my previous relationship. And everything kind of just fell into place. I mean, it was uncomfortable. And if I look back, at the time I was like, my life's falling apart. But when I look back now, I'm like, oh, all of that happened exactly as it was supposed to.
Totally.
Does that even answer your question? I think I did another rabbit hole.
No, and I think you did. I think it's just such a powerful lesson, especially when because I did it, and I talked to a lot of women just starting out on their like spiritual, entrepreneurial, personal development journeys, and we can get really attached to how we think it's going to look, and we're like, okay, like I made all these sacrifices, I took this big leap, and so it has to like be this, and we miss all the magic that can happen when we're open to it being different or better than we thought it was going to be. So
yeah, exactly. And I think too, that's like the part of it where you kind of have to create the vision, but release the attachment.
Totally.
Right. Like, and trust that everything's going to work out, which is the hardest part. But
yeah. As it's supposed to, even if it doesn't look like you thought it would.
Because I remember tons of days. I even think like in the more beginning days, we were just getting to know each other, right? And I remember going through growing pains then, like, and I always say, no matter whether it's a new job or a growing business or clients or a relationship or whatever it is, like, none of that external stuff is going to outweigh the fear that we carry in us, right? Like, we always have to do the inner work, because I'm even thinking back, like, I was scared when I quit my job. I was scared when I left that relationship. I was scared when I launched a group program. I was scared when I launched IGC's coach training.
Basically always scared. It's just like
all this stuff. Like, the practice of being able to choose something else applies to everything, because I would always create these conditions. Like, if I just had 5 clients, I'd be fine. If I just did this, I'd be fine. If I just lived here, I'd be fine, right? Totally focused stuff. And I still do it. I just laugh at myself about it now.
Yeah, and like noticing of like, all right, brain, like that's not really how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so great. So what's the best advice you've ever received?
Honestly, I think it was to just go one day at a time. And I know, even for me, like, I'm a type A, like, plan out my year, I plan out my content calendars, I plan out everything, right? But I think from someone with, fear showing up as anxiety and worry, the best advice I really ever got was someone saying, like, it's okay for you to just be present today. It's okay for you to just do what you need to do today, to just feel how you need to feel today, and know that tomorrow you can be something else.
Yeah.
And that kind of lets me be more present. Like, keep, one day at a time.
One day at a time. One day at a time.
Basic, but
sorry.
It's kind of how my life. It's such basic advice, but much needed.
100%. And it's so powerful. And I find sometimes the most wisdom filled and, like you were saying, cliche, like, things, we can say, like, oh, like, it's so, I've heard that so many times, but are we actually putting that into practice, right? Are we actually living by it? Have we actually embodied what it means?
Yeah, we're so used to reading, like, a cute, fancy quote on Instagram or Facebook, and it's like in one ear the other. Yeah, or just like and scroll. Sometimes I hear these basic ass things and I'm like, oh my God, this is life changing.
Yeah. 100%.
And if you let it be, it will be.
So big if you let it be. So, what's one time we talk a lot about intuition, getting in touch with your intuition? What does that look like to you? Like, how do you tap into your intuition?
Ooh, that's such a good question. In practice of coaching, I feel like it comes really naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
To feel it like in your body, like you can feel someone else's energy, or you can feel, signs, or I can at least, like, especially in like a centered coaching environment.
Mm-hmm.
I would say in my outside of outside of business daily life, it's more of a challenge for me. But I would say number one thing is actually slowing down.
Yeah.
Like I have a love-hate relationship with meditating. Again, I'm like a go, go, go kind of person. But when I can give myself just 5 minutes without the label of meditation or without an agenda to just sit and like center
Mm-hmm.
and really figure out like, okay, what is my next best move? What is the next step for me? What do I need right now? I think ultimately just creating a process of slowing down. And then I think also, like, I read something Gabby Bernstein wrote years ago, like The Busy Girl's Guide to Meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get in touch with your intuition, like doing physical activities sometimes too. So I would say like running is a huge one. I get so many messages when I'm running. And even yoga, like a lot of me at yoga is me like really trying to focus on the poses. I'm like kind of tall and awkward. But the other piece of it is like, it's like that sacred space where I can tune in and slow down. And I would say that those are probably, how I typically access my intuition at a coaching call.
And on a coaching call, or?
I feel like on a coaching call, because I really center ahead of time, and I've trained myself to really be in the moment with clients at this point, that I'm like in my natural best state to hear my own intuition.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And outside of that, like I'm more of I have to like kind of actively access it, like through running or through yoga, or saying to myself, like, just sit down for 5 minutes and like be with your thoughts, right? Like it doesn't feel as natural to me, but it's something that I actually have to, I know Kelly Curtis would say that it's on all the time, but sometimes I don't listen to it unless I consciously am like, Olivia, tune in.
Right. It's so true. Like, I feel like my intuition is it's always there, but are you listening? Are you tapped in? Like, that's a whole other question.
Yeah, I think it's too, like when we were talking about at the beginning, like how do I know if like what I'm doing is in integrity with what I desire and who I am? Like that's the same thing. Like I have to slow down and tune in and check in with myself. And that's usually where I hear those intuitive voices, if you will, being like, this is right, this isn't what you want, right? So kind of along the same line.
Yeah. So actually that leads me beautifully into the next question. I'm so curious if there has ever been a time when you followed your intuition and then realized you were either out of integrity or off track, it didn't work out the way you thought it was going to, and you've had to switch directions.
Oh, yeah. Like my entire 20s were off track and I had to switch directions.
Like life, yeah.
Yeah, life. In terms of like business, oh gosh. I mean, all the time, like even my like basic coaching packages, like I remember getting a lot of information and tweaking them to make them, trendy, if you will, in the coaching world. And then I remember 6 months later being like, this is not for me. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And I totally changed it and kind of brought it back to like simplicity, which is how I always liked it to be. And I mean, that's just a basic example, but I also feel like there's probably more, even just like simple Facebook posts or something where I was like, oh, why did I say that? What was I doing? But I also think we evolve so much. It's hard to say sometimes. Like in the moment, I might have thought that this was the right thing, right? And then I evolve and shift and change, and then I realize that I have, I need to tweak it again.
Yeah. And I think I love that point because what that says to me too is forgiving yourself. Oftentimes we can look back at the like crunchy or like parts of our journey where we're like, ooh, like that was not the best or like how I wanted it to be. And we can be really hard on ourselves.
Yeah. Like Facebook, when it shows me like last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, like my post, what is it called? Like on this day. I'm
Yeah,
like,
the time hop thing.
oh. Yeah. But I think again, like you can laugh at it because if you didn't have that moment, you wouldn't have gotten to this one. And
yeah, exactly.
you know.
I'm so curious. Has there been one in particular recently where you're just like, oh God?
I'd say like I've been pretty steady in like being like I'd say being my brand, but like being in integrity with my brand for the past year or so. But I will say when I look back like 3 or 4 years, I was kind of I mean I was just sending messages that I wouldn't send today. Like, one of the examples, like I don't like the whole like make 50K in one day or like how to do my 100K launch. But like a couple of years ago, that was so trendy. And I remember falling into it and it didn't work. The marketing for me didn't work because it wasn't who I was at all. But I look back and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I would have posted that. Not that I don't love money and success and like have it often, but it is not my like marketing angle at all. It just feels so out of alignment to talk about it like that. And I'll look back a couple of years ago though when this started kind of being like,
the thing, yeah.
The thing, and a little cringeworthy.
Cringeworthy. I have so many of those. You could start a blog like cringeworthy coaching posts.
Yeah, I can't even like. Good thing they don't show you like on this day in this Facebook group because it probably would have.
Here's the same post that you posted 5 places because somebody told you that was a good idea.
That was a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always call myself a coaching dinosaur though because I started coaching way before Facebook groups, and I remember like when the rules have changed is all I'm going to say. Like,
yeah.
What used to be allowed in the 2 Facebook groups about coaching that existed is not allowed anymore. So
yeah, and I think this speaks to just like how important it is to know yourself, right? And like know your brand and know what you're about and what you stand for, because then all that kind of like crazy advice or the trends or the whatever can come and go because you feel solid.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, why change your message if it's working? Right. Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So how would you, I know sometimes when women are just getting started, it's hard to find your message. I know I struggled with it for a long time. So how did you clarify that for yourself?
Oh, well, it's like, one of the things I talk about, mostly with my clients, I guess, is like finding your coaching zone of genius, right? So like, not doing what everyone else tells you to do or how everyone else is doing it, but looking at like what you're the best at and what you're the most passionate about, right? And then creating something that stems from that place for 2 reasons. One, it kind of allows you to show up at your best, which is attractive to clients, right? Like when you're really operating in your zone of genius, people can feel it energetically and probably like strategically.
Yeah.
And it also allows you to be sustainable. Like if I was waking up selling something I didn't love every day or doing something I didn't love, okay, not every day. I'm saying 80% of the time is really good. Like if you love what you're doing 80% of the time, there is stuff I still hate about business. But like if you can get in that like 80% of the time, you are way more sustainable than if you are trying to do something every day that you don't really like. And so I think that's actually probably my message in business, like figuring out, where you can show up the most powerfully as a leader, and then putting that entrepreneur piece to it. Like, okay, what are you actually selling now?
Yeah.
And I think the coach training piece comes in there too, because be the best, like be trained, have a high level skill set. That's sustainable. People don't want to find out you suck 2 years later and then it's like all for nothing. Like, actually be good at what you do. When you're good at what you do, that's also part of that sustainability thing. It's like talent plus passion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
Again, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of my message, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to stay in our zone of genius because, again, it speaks to that trend following, or like if we're feeling insecure about who we are, what we're offering, it's really easy to get caught up in the like, maybe I need to follow this like cookie cutter or do what this Facebook ad is telling me to do or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not a blueprint kind of person at all.
Yeah.
I think they probably work for some people depending on what their zone of genius is, right? Like some people need a plan and then they can bring that little bit of creativity to it some other way, but
Totally. So one thing that I think is so unique about you is that you co-created this coach training program and now you're the director of it, or really you created so much of it. And so I think that's just, I mean, it's so unique. It's not every day you meet a coach who's like, yeah, I created my own training program. So can you tell us what that process was like? I think it's just so amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like where this whole divine path we were talking about comes into play. So before I got into coaching, I was a teacher, I was an instructional coach, and I have a couple degrees in education, curriculum design, leadership. And when I started my business,
everything you need.
I started my business, I was like, damn it, I really could have just paid for this like $4,000 coaching program and saved myself $120,000 in student loans. Anyway, I couldn't figure it out, right? Like, why did I have this background, this experience, and now I wanted to do this, right? And so then when I kind of partnered with Katie and she, brought me on as a coach in her Glow Circle, they were in kind of the baby stages of the coach training program. And, people at the time, I remember sitting with our original leadership team and being like, here's what was good about my training. Here's what wasn't. Here's what they had. Here's what was missing. And taking like, what were we, like 20 people at the time?
Yeah, it was
really pulling out like everything that we needed to create not only a high level coach, but a high level business. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of when I was like, okay, I guess I can put my like curriculum design hat on here finally and teacher hat back on. And so it kind of was like, it just felt like my natural next step. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I would create curriculum all day. It's so, it's easy for me. I enjoy it. Like I love the teaching and learning experience. And so it was just, it was a pain, like editing it and do like getting an ICF.
It's that 20% that we don't like.
My entire life. I think. But other than that, like it all felt pretty natural. It didn't, that's what I think, like when you're kind of in the zone, like it should feel natural. It might be exhausting still sometimes, but you're doing it because you love it. Yeah. It's like parenting. Like, I love you, but sometimes you exhaust me. I'm so tired.
And I am so tired. Please go back to sleep.
Yeah, please go to bed, and then we'll get back at it tomorrow. Same thing.
It's so funny. Yeah. So, and I think that's so true. It's what I call your natural magic, right? It's like where your like talents and your passion come together to create your unique thing. And so
exactly. Yeah. Natural magic is like the same, I think, as zone of genius or zone of coaching genius.
Yeah. And I think it can take a lot of inner work and connecting those dots and just having the courage to follow that path. And then you look back and you're like, oh, I couldn't see how this was all going to come together, but now I do.
Like there's no wrong steps. And sometimes I tell my clients we're like still doing like a side job or a different job, like there is something for you there. Like you're not just there for the hell of it. Like there's a reason, there's a connection, there's a skill you're learning, there's an experience you're having, there's something for you in every phase. And I also think that we can't get to the next phase until we realize what that is.
Oh my God. So true. Can you say more about that? Because you just dropped a serious truth bomb.
Well, I think it's like, So the way I see it is like we are always moving forward, right? Especially us like personal development world entrepreneur people, right? Like status quo is never enough. Like we can only stay content with what we've created for so long before we're like we got to do something else, right? And so I always feel like when things aren't moving, like you can declare to the universe what you want, but they're not. You can't write out a timeline that they're, the universe is going to say, okay, I accept, and like everything happens.
Good job.
So I wish. Actually, I don't wish, but so my thought is that like you can't. There's actually a Rumi quote too, but fortunately I can't remember it, so I'm not going to cliche you guys again today. But basically, like when we are ready for our next level, we will have learned everything that we need from our current place, right? So if we're if we're in a position that we don't necessarily want to be in, the most valuable thing I found is to really tune in. Like there's something for me here. There is a reason I'm here, and I want to be there, but I'm still here, and I'm doing everything I need to do to get there, but I'm still here. There's something still for you there. The universe isn't designed to screw us and to make us miserable, right? Like it's there to teach us and to help us grow. And so if you aren't ready to grow to the next level, like be present to where you're at. Does that make sense?
Oh my God, 100%. And I think it's such an important truism because we can be so anxious to get to the next thing. And so it's almost like you're like spinning your wheels, but you're not getting anywhere because you're not actually being present with what is now. And oftentimes, it's so painful that we don't want to accept it or be there or whatever. So we're so anxious to get to the next thing, but we're missing all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so, and I can think of a million examples.
I mean, we're always, rushing to the next thing or trying to, right? I mean, myself included, like nothing that I say here isn't for me too. This is all for me, and you, but I even think about my Q2, Q3, Q4 plans of this year. I'm like, oh my God, my life is going to be so great when this happens. And I'm like, whoa, like be where you are. There's something for me here too. Yeah. Even if it's not as shiny and pretty as I think it'll be in Q4. Whatever.
And we can romanticize it. I know I get caught in this trap all the time of like, oh, computer is shaking. Romanticizing there, right? Like when I get there, when I have this, when this happens, like everything will be shiny and perfect. And you'd think would have learned by now, like that's not how it works, but I still catch myself doing it.
Such a context, huh? If then,
totally. Yeah. And like we were saying in the beginning, just like being able to come back to this present moment and like, like I'm good. And what is this moment trying to show me and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's something in all of it.
Yeah. 100%. So what about one time, I'm curious, when you've followed your intuition and it actually paid off or worked better than you were expecting?
Ooh, talking to Greg at the bar at the beach when I quit my job.
Really? Oh my God, I love that.
No, I'm not even joking. Like this is where the story does get a little bit like she's probably making it up, but I'm not. Like the day that I quit my job and broke up with my ex-boyfriend, I drove to the beach with my girlfriend, and I literally met Greg that night. And I said to him, I was like, I'm actually unavailable for anything. I was like, unless you want to like have a family, like, and have a couple little kids, like running barefoot on the beach somewhere, like, and cut ourselves off from like corporate America, like we're probably, like, this isn't going to work. And he was like, well, do you want to just be friends? And I was like, okay. And so I kind of just went with it. And even though it was against everything I said, like somewhere in me was like, I'm just going to follow this path. Yeah. So that worked out. Not a business story, but
that's okay. This is all just about magic in all areas. Oh my God, I love that.
Because he broke all the rules for like people that I should be dating anyway. So it was like a lot of those. I don't know if you can hear me right now.
It's all good stuff. Don't worry
about it. But that was definitely one of the times that I followed my intuition, and here we are. Living by the beach with a barefoot baby.
With a barefoot baby. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Oh my God, I love that story. I actually didn't know that that's how you guys met.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny story.
So good.
So I haven't been single in like 10 years.
No big deal.
Yeah, all good.
So Little Knox, that's actually a good question. So I know you don't actually like consider yourself a mompreneur, which you're not. I wouldn't say.
I'm that. I just don't like that word.
But it's something I so admire about you because I personally, when I think about having a baby, it seems so time consuming and intense, and you just handle it so well. So I'm curious, like, what that's like for you.
I think there's probably sometimes I don't handle it so well that just like people don't know about.
You're not posting on Instagram? What?
No, I'm not. I actually edit things out of like videos and pictures that show how stressful. Like you take a picture and it's like a series and like somebody looks crazy or I'm yelling at the camera or Knox is screaming. I'm like, there's a good one. Like, let's show that to the world. Yeah. So I wouldn't say I always handle it so well, but I think I would say, okay, first thing, when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, let's go. Like, let's go. I don't want to be hustling my child's entire life. Like, I want to get everything set up and get a business model working that I actually like. I wanted to be stable. And so it actually kind of like lit another, like I was doing okay, but I wasn't like multiple income streams and like actually being able to take a day off.
Yeah.
But once I, found out I was pregnant, I was actually like, it's on, right? So it was a really big like motivator for me.
Totally.
And even now, like, I mean, I'm not going to lie, like I'm highly supported. Like Greg works from home. He does music production. Like he's very flexible. We have in-home child care.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it and be like, he's by my side and like, I'm able to do this. No, like the door is locked and I have, 4 to 6 hours a day of like, not hustling, but like working without distraction.
Yeah, focused.
Right. And so I honestly think it made me though, like more conscious of what I wanted to create inside of a timeline. It made me realize how much time I was wasting before, honestly. Like I would la-di-da around and then I'd work and then I'd la-di-da again. And now I'm like, I have 6 hours today to change the world and then I'm turning it off.
Here we go. Yeah.
And even now it's kind of the same. Like I think it makes me a lot more targeted and intentional in what I'm doing. And it's kind of inspiring. Like it's not just, I don't make money just because I want to like buy shit for myself anymore. It's like there's a bigger assignment for my finances at this point.
It's so beautiful. It's so good. Yeah. And I think it's such an important conversation to have as we kind of move into starting families and having lives. I think like that whole balance thing is such, there can be so many false assumptions and expectations and all this kind of stuff around it. So I love it.
I would have thought I would have been a horrible mother before, and I would have thought it was impossible. I practically did. That's why I was like, if I don't hustle now, it's like never going to work out. But like everything always works out if we let it. Yeah. I mean, some days I'm crying in my bathroom hiding from my child because I'm like, I need 5 minutes by myself. But, one day at a time.
Yeah. Boundaries. That just sounds like a good boundary to me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't lock him out when like someone's not in the other room with him, but I do. Oh, sometimes. So funny. I need like a CPS person after this airs.
No. So as we start to wind down, one of my signature questions is, what does making magic mean to you?
Oh, I think having fun.
Yeah.
Definitely having fun. I think like the most magical thing is having fun and creating the things that you wish existed, right? Like the second you said that, I was like, oh my God, the most magical thing I'll ever create besides my children is probably going to be my animal rescue. Like that is to me like the epitome of like making magic, having fun, creating something amazing. So I think it's those things, fun and creation.
Yeah.
That's magic making.
Love that. Can you say more about your animal rescue? I know that this is your
Oh my
thing,
God, it's my obsession. But so I have, well, I always say that like once I, can create enough passive income streams, I can dedicate more time to this. Like if then, right? Like if this happens, then this happens. But I've had a nonprofit, business plan more or less, or proposal outlined for like a year now.
So
There's more to it. There's more work to be done, and it's also like state laws impact stuff like this. But ultimately, like my dream is to be able to have an animal rescue, as I don't. It's not as a source of income, but as a main thing I dedicate my time to eventually. We have. Can you guys see my dogs? Yeah, look, they're right there.
Oh my God, Nugget.
Yeah, they're both rescued. We have, we love our rescue pit bulls over here. And ideally, I'd like to create, I don't want to spill all of it because I haven't actually legalized it or finalized it yet.
Yeah.
But Greg and I are both super passionate about animal rescue. We volunteer at the Humane Society. Our son goes with us. We do a lot of fostering of dogs, and we've learned a lot over the years. And ideally, like we'll have enough passive income to really dedicate, a lot of time to making this a thing. There's a lot of homeless dogs, and right now we do like charitable donations every month. But eventually, I'd like it to be to my own charity. So.
Yeah. Cool life.
It's
so
it.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think it's such a beautiful example of the bigger picture, right? Like we can get so caught up in business and making money and building, and it's like, oh wait, but there's like a bigger picture here of why I want to do this in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a picture I drew of myself when I was like 8, and it says like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it says help people and rescue dogs. And I was like, I'm totally doing that.
You're totally doing that. Oh my God.
So I'm like, okay, this is like, it's in the works. I mean, if you've ever tried to start a nonprofit, damn, it's way harder than a business.
Really?
Whole different learning curve. But yeah, that's kind of the end game. Like if I could retire in like an animal sanctuary, you can have Paris, you can have luxury hotels. I'll take the
dog rescue. I love it. Amazing. So, Olivia, if the women listening want to follow up with you, where should they go to get more of your amazing wisdom?
Oh, well, my website is www.oliviamchapman.com. And if you kind of want to check out my vibe and my stuff, I would definitely say look at the free resources. I have tons of free resources on my site for coaches, for entrepreneurs, stuff to help you scale your business. And yeah, pop on over there. There's also a link to my Facebook group there, so you can find me in the Empowered Coach Collective as well.
Yay, amazing. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes. Yeah, is there any parting thoughts before we complete?
No, I'm actually happy that we made that connection, that like Zone of Genius and Natural Magic are like the same thing. We're so on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. But gosh, no, I wish I had some amazing wisdom. But next time you're scrolling your Instagram feed, stop and internalize that quote. I actually have it that's probably there for a reason too. So look for those messages.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalie.